I'm Brian Warshaw,
And I'm Jay Yaz.
and this is Comics Now. Welcome to Comics Now. I'm Brian Warshaw, and I'm joined, as I am always joined on this podcast, by my co-host, Mr. Jay Yaz. Jay, how's it shaking?
After our incredibly long intermission after the last episode, things are going pretty well. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, things are going quite well. The week is almost over, which means the weekend is almost here. Yeah,
3 days since we
after our long sojourn in the
hiatus.
Yeah. Yes, well, a lot, or at least a little of great significance has happened in the interim, folks. We have our first Patreon supporter. I know you're supposed to call them patrons. It's going to take some time for me to get used to that, but we actually have a supporter now on Patreon, and that supporter is Nick Underwood. Nick, thank you so much. I know we told you via email, but this really made my day. I'm sure it had a very positive impact on your day as well, Jay. And we are so grateful for your support. Grateful to learn that you've been following the show and the site for some time now. And we're so glad to have you. For the rest of you guys, we've got a great new perk tier at $2 of support. While supplies last, you get to pick from the Marvel books that I buy, and I will send you on a regular basis, and starting with whatever back issues I have, the digital codes that come in those Marvel books. I buy them in paper, the ones that I buy. I don't use the digital codes, and I will gladly give them to somebody who signs up at that $2 tier. So if you're interested, there's still books like Savage Avengers, Venom. Nick picked Daredevil, so Daredevil's spoken for. But we've got some good limiteds that I've been picking up, like Spider-Man Life Story. Got the codes for number 1 and number 2, so you can get caught up before the subsequent issues come out. And I'll also be buying this summer books like Absolute Carnage, House of X, Powers of 10. So, yeah, if you're interested in supporting us, it's a big help to us. And if you support at that $2 tier, you can follow along with a Marvel book at pretty much for you, a 50% discount. So I think that's a great deal, and you will be supporting us. And if you're worried about us putting out extra money and offsetting the benefit, I'm buying these books anyway, out of money from my own personal love of comics budget. So you don't have to worry about that. Those codes are just not being used and sitting in my short boxes. So we are very happy to share them with our patrons.
So yes, I was also very excited that we have a patron. I would refresh the Patreon page frequently throughout the day.
I know, I check the analytics.
Yeah, like all the time, just to see if we got one. And finally got a patron, so Nick, thanks very much. I also, in addition to the just standard perks that we're offering, which is a bonus episode for Patreon members and the digital codes that Brian's providing. I also hooked Nick up with a really cool poster, an Iron Man poster offered through the Disney Movie Reward site. So I have quite a few points there. So the next couple of patrons that we get, I'll go ahead and send one their way too. There's some theatrical posters for like Black Panther and Ant-Man and the Wasp and Endgame, and there's even some cool comics posters. Like Nick chose an Iron Man one that he's being chased down by a bunch of missiles. There's another collage of Iron Man's helmet made up of smaller Iron Man images.
I love that.
Yeah, they're just some really cool posters. So if you want to get a sweet poster in addition to all the other Patreon perks that we're offering, go ahead and sign up. But yeah, even still, like we always say, we just love doing this, but we love that it's loved by people enough to support us in doing it. So thanks very much, Nick, and anybody else who's even considering supporting us on Patreon. We love doing this for you guys.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't a thrill to see that, we're actually, somebody is willing to contribute money towards comics. Now, that's definitely very thrilling, but I think certainly of equal thrill was just getting to know, another person on a more personal level who has been enjoying what we do. So that's another benefit of Patreon. So even if you guys can't support us financially yet, it does us good to hear from you. So if you haven't reached out to us, or if you're not comfortable commenting on the website or hitting us up on Facebook or Twitter, we would love to get an email from you guys. Even if you don't have a question and you just want to say hi, reach out and let us know you're out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you said, Brian. That's a really good point. I mean, I just love making new friends and getting to know people and just geeking out and sharing the love of comics with people.
There's another nerd in the world.
Exactly. I mean, that's how we kicked off Comics Now, was becoming friends through Batman news and everything, and now we've got our own website and podcast, and that's how we've gotten to know guys like Dylan Gilbertson and Jamie Drewley and like a bunch of the other guys out there who are doing their own comic stuff. So we just love chatting comics with everybody.
Yeah, so let's go on and give the people what they're used to, Jay. So why don't you tell us what kind of news we're going to be talking about tonight?
All right, so the first item up for discussion here is a couple of weeks old, but Doomsday Clock from DC Comics, which is, of course, written by Jeff Johns, illustrated by Gary Frank and Brad Anderson, and lettered by the great Rob Lee, who we have an interview with up on the website. That was a lot of fun. He was a great subject, very, very humble guy. Thought that he would be very boring, but I found his responses to be incredibly fascinating. Just a really cool guy, just to read what he has to say about lettering. So go check that out. But
just to be clear, he thought that the interview would be boring.
Yes.
And you found his expectations to be incorrect.
Yes. He was apologetic while we were corresponding, stating, "Oh, I'll probably put your readers to sleep, but I'm glad to do it." So, I mean, just a very, very humble,
Little does he know, we've been putting people to sleep with letterer interviews since day one.
Yes, exactly. But no, it was a fun interview. He had some fun stories, like about Pete Tomasi and just his history in the business there. So go check that out if you haven't. But anyway, Doomsday Clock is going to be collected in 2 volumes, beginning this October. Doomsday Clock Part 1 will come out and will collect issues 1 through 6. With the second volume to follow in May of 2020.
Snicker.
Yeah, honestly, not that much of a surprise, considering how much it's been pushed back over time and everything.
The question is, will the second volume come out before the actual Doomsday Clock reaches midnight and we're all blown away?
Yes, exactly. Before it reaches Skrull o'clock. A joke which Brian reminded me I made, and I retroactively high-fived myself because I forgot about it until earlier today.
Yes, Dr. Manhattan, really a Skrull.
Yes. So anyway...
masquerading as a bald Kree.
Yes. Which, he's blue, so he really just has to, add some yellow paint, and then there you go, he's green. Volume... Part 1 will collect issues 1 through 6. Says it'll be 224 pages with a new cover by Gary Frank, and retail for about $25 and have a lot of supplemental material. Most likely the same thing with the second volume, and then eventually down the road, both volumes will be collected together in one giant volume. Brian, are you the least bit surprised by this announcement?
I mean, I'm not surprised in general. I mean, obviously there's nothing to be surprised about that the first volume is going to be collected, but that the second volume is so late is not surprising. I don't know. I mean, this is going to sound like sarcasm, but just based on the delays, even the delays after they moved to the every other month schedule, I will believe that second volume is coming out when it actually happens.
Yeah, because I mean, people have been giving Johns and Frank a lot of crap for it, which I understand the frustration of the delays, but at the same time, again, don't harass people online for, creating art. I mean, it's kind of frustrating because this book has been going on for almost 2 years at this point. But I mean, really, if you look at it, it's effectively have it's even with the delays, it's pretty much had a bi-monthly release schedule because it came out. The first issue came out, I think, in like October or November of 2017, and even if the 12th issue gets pushed back from where it's not solicited at this point yet, but if the 12th issue gets pushed back even a little bit, that may push it to October or November of this year, and that's still 24 months on a effectively that comes to around a bi-monthly schedule anyway. I get the frustration because it was initially announced as a monthly book, and
Yeah.
um,
I think, it's, if anybody has a right to complain about the delays, it's those of us who slave over reviews month in and month out. Because, and I think we talked about this when we discussed Batman Creature of the Night recently, when you're coming in to review a book and it's been months and months since the last one came out, you pretty much have to reread some of what you've done in the past just to get yourself back in the context and that frame of mind. But no, I mean, it is understandable that consumers would be upset with the delays as well. But at the same time, like at this point, unless you're brand new and Doomsday Clock is the thing that is disillusioning you to the idea that comics are going to ship when the previews book says they will. Really, when you come to a high profile creative team in a boutique format, you really have to enter into that with at least, even if not the expectation, with the allowance for delays and sometimes long delays. You look at any time that Jim Lee has been on some limited book in the past couple of years. You look at just a number of other projects. Things have a way of getting delayed when the creative team is high profile enough to be able to do that. And the upside of that is that most of the time you do end up with a better finished product. So if you can suffer through the delays, you end up getting some of the best work from those creators. And again, if you can suffer through the delays, then it's worth it. If you can't suffer through the delays, then I mean, you can vote with your wallet.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in the case of a book like Doomsday Clock, I mean, Gary Frank is let's say a more deliberate artist. He does work a little bit slower, but I mean, you can see where all of that time goes. He does not phone in a panel, let alone a page. So, I mean, his work is evident in all the time that he puts into creating the best product that he can. And with, I mean, Doomsday Clock, I mean, if you don't like the story, then that's one thing entirely. But I mean, it's a dense book. It's highly detailed, and I mean, there is so much to read and dissect in every single issue. So it's not like there are issues that feel like just filler being put in here, to pad out the length. I mean, every issue has a ton of information in it to tell the story that Johns and Frank are wanting to tell. And so even if there is a longer release schedule for it, it's not like you're getting something that you're going to finish in 5 minutes and then have to wait another 2.5 months to get the next part. I mean, there is plenty going on in each installment that you get your money's worth. Even if, I mean, like anyone, I've been reviewing this book since issue one, so I totally get the comparison with like Batman Creature of the Night. I mean, sometimes I forget what happened in the previous issue or in, a few issues before that, they have callbacks to, so I have to go back and do that. But again, I mean, there's just so much thought put into the story that I'm glad that it is worth it in the long run, that they're telling the story that they want to tell the way they want to tell it, rather than just, getting a product out there just to say that they have it out there.
Sure, and that's a really good point. I mean, I some other books that have been delayed in the past, like when a monthly title gets a month delay, or sometimes there's a forced delay. Like I remember back when we were getting ready to transition from New 52 to Rebirth, there were some books that DC just deliberately delayed. Like I think they did that with Batman a couple times during Snyder's run, actually, not just at the end, and those were generally worth it, but sometimes when they delay a monthly title, you just end up with, a 20-pager that reads as quickly as anything else. And so that's a really good point, that you're getting in Doomsday Clock in particular, you're getting a lot to chew on, both from John's and from the art team. There's a lot in Gary Frank's artwork, both just in the artifice of it, but then also in the storytelling to digest. So, you're not getting a snack after waiting a long time to eat.
Yeah,
you're getting a pretty decent meal.
Each issue is a full meal with plenty to chew on, for sure.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like is, and I get they do it, and they do it because it is going to make some money, but I don't like the two separate volumes. I mean, I guess the optimistic take on that would be that people who are trade waiting can start getting into the story sooner, but then the pessimistic look would be that they're just raking in the bucks.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's taken so long.
Honestly, unless they just completely crash and burn, I was planning on picking up the series in a full series trade whenever it came out, because I think it's well worth owning. It's about as good a sequel to Watchmen as you can make, and it's about as good an incorporation of Watchmen in the DC universe as you can make. So, I mean, already it's better than it has any right to be. That's not to say it's perfect. I do have some problems with some of the storytelling, just with some of the not so much with the story itself, just it's things that I wouldn't have done, or maybe right now how the story's playing out, I'm not sure where it's going to end up. So I don't like a particular story beat, but it may be justified in the end. But I mean, it is definitely a better book than anyone could have expected. I've been enjoying it. So yeah, I mean, it is the matter of, I was a little disappointed that they split it into two volumes, because as it stands right now, I think issue 10 is scheduled to come out either at the end of this month or maybe in June. Issue 11 is scheduled to come out sometime in August, because they were both pushed back quite a bit. Because I think issue 10 was originally solicited for like March or something. So it got pushed back 2 months. And then I think issue 11 got pushed back like 6 weeks from its original solicitation. And issue 12 hasn't even been solicited yet. But even if you, let's say issue 10 comes out, within the next, 4 weeks or so. Even if issue 11 is pushed back, another few weeks or even another month, and if issue 12 doesn't come out until November or December of this year, or even January of next year, just waiting until May 2020 to release a single volume of the whole book would have made sense. But to your point, there are plenty of people that will always comment on my Doomsday Clock reviews of I'm I'm trade waiting this, so I can't wait to catch up. So I do understand that aspect as well.
Sure, and I mean they'll release a single volume eventually, and it'll probably be in the deluxe oversized format, and hopefully with a lot of goodies from Gary Frank in the back.
Definitely. I've already closed out the article, and pretty much it does say, I'm pretty sure it does say in there that it will be collected in one volume at one point. But anyway, that's not the least bit surprising. Next order of business is a lot of new creative teams coming to Marvel very, very soon, and that's all we really know. Because in all the Marvel books today and all across Twitter, there have been like a single page advertisements, I guess you could say, where it just has a creator or creators, August 2019 Marvel, and then hashtag Marvel Comics. That's, I mean, kind of like what they did with, Hickman's, the announcement that Hickman was going to be coming back a couple months ago. It's like that, but on a grand scale, because there are a ton of creative teams here. No idea what titles they're for. No idea what it actually even is. Some people are speculating that it's just going to be maybe a bunch of backup stories or small two-pagers as part of, like anthologies or something like that for a big event that they have or something like that. But you've got, I'm not even going to try to read every single one of these, but you've got people like Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, which I know we were both really excited about that.
I'm excited about it. I think I was equally as excited about trying to come up with goofy possibilities like Squirrel Girl, brown,
and Galactus, purple, and what did I say? Man-Thing, giant-sized green, because there used to be a giant-sized Man-Thing book. Anyway, if you have to explain the joke, you're a dad. And then you've got like Saladin Ahmed and Steve Rude and Brad Meltzer and Julian Totino Tedesco, and interestingly, Patrick Gleason is listed by himself. So I wonder if he's going to write and draw something, because you've got Chip Zdarsky. He's he says Chip Zdarsky. The lettering of his name has like a glowing effect on it, and it says no one else would work with me. So, but Alex Ross is listed by himself, and Eric Larson is also listed by himself. So, I wonder if they're writing and drawing something on their own. And then like Ed Brisson and Jorge Fornes, and who else is sticking out here? Al Ewing and Daniel Acuna, sorry, and Al Ewing and Mike Deodato Jr., and Al Ewing and George Perez. So you've got like tons of crazy talent here for some sort of unknown event. And yeah,
what if it's not an event, and what if it's another sort of new era, like the all new, all different, or the Marvel Now, or Fresh Start, or all that other stuff? What if this is kind of hyping up, just kind of, Marvel is rededicating to, hiring, top creators or something like that? What if it's something like that? I wonder. I mean, obviously, with the pairings, they're insinuating that there are going to be specific projects announced as well. But
sure, if that's the case, then Al Ewing is going to have like 6 or 7 books because he's listed with several different artists. But yeah, I don't know. It's just really cool. Really curious to see where they go, and a lot of these people I didn't necessarily expect to see.
George Perez.
Yeah, George Perez, who, he officially retired a couple of months ago. So I wonder if maybe he had one story that he'd been working on, and this is going to be a swan song. But Alex Ross, he hasn't. I don't think he's illustrated a comic since Justice. Like, oh gosh, that was like 10, 15 years ago. But yeah, just really cool, really excited, really curious to see, what this is going to be.
Yeah, me too. It should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and another thing that was pretty funny was Clay Mann actually tweeted out his own that said Tom King and Clay Mann still on Batman, August 2019 or something like that. And then it had just a bunch of little emoji bats around there. That was a pretty funny joke.
That's awesome.
Yep. All right. And anyway, that's it for the news I had. Did you have the diamond numbers?
We're going to have to talk about that another time because I don't have the email up and I'm just going to be fumbling around for it. And, we spent quite a lot of time on Doomsday Clock, so I think it's probably safe to move on.
All right, that's all we got for the news this week. Like I said, it's been a little bit slow lately. We did have a couple of listener questions and topics, though. Good friend of the show, Jamie Drewley. This wasn't so much a question, but more a Twitter thread that, like a Twitter back and forth that he and I had. And I said, this is a good topic. We're going to talk about this on the show tonight. So he was lamenting that Silencer is ending, because I guess he didn't know that until he listened to the most recent, the previous episode. So yes, unfortunately, Silencer is ending in a few months. He says that she'd best show up on Batman and the Outsiders or something. Honor's way too good of a character to be brushed under the rug. Bad enough I lost Damage already. Losing Honor is unacceptable. Like I said, we had a little back and forth, but then just kind of got the juices flowing, and I got us thinking about where people could end up, like because he asked about the new age of DC heroes and all those other characters that have been introduced. If Silencer was the last one, and other than the Terrifics, which are pre-existing characters in Plastic Man, Metamorpho, Phantom Girl, and Mr. Terrific, then yeah, Silencer is the last of the original characters they introduced. But Jamie, was thinking that a bunch of the other characters could find new homes. And one of the examples he gave was Brimstone could work in Justice League Dark. Couldn't really think of a place for Damage, but definitely like a place for him to stick around too. So I said that this is going to be one of our topics tonight. So Brian, where would you like to see? Or where could you see some of these original creations for that new age of DC heroes push? Where do you think you could see them after the dust has settled and all these series have ended?
So, Damage, probably the most obvious one would be the Suicide Squad. It just, that's the kind of weapon Waller wouldn't mind getting her hands on. So I could see that. I guess the only downside for Waller would be that because of the nature of Damage and how it's, what is it, a minute? Like he's got that power for a minute and then he's back to being Ethan Elvis Avery.
Yeah, it's an hour because they
an hour. Okay. A minute would be pretty hard to work.
They adapted it from the Miraclo that I think it's Hourman uses. I was about to say Dr. Midnight. I was like, nope, that's not right. Another Justice Society member. But it's taken from Hourman.
Yeah, so I think Suicide Squad could be a natural fit for him. I don't know. Actually thinking about this, it just crossed my mind now, and it's the Robert Venditti connection, but be kind of neat to see Damage as a Green Lantern. Like trying to navigate the crazy power set with being a lantern. I mean, the Guardians would never go for it. I know this couldn't happen, but just conceptually that sounds kind of neat to me. Just trying to put himself like in the science cells or something for that 1 hour where he's going to be damaged so that he can't hurt anybody. And then he gets out and he gets to play Space Cop.
I could see them putting it. At first, I was like, "That's just so weird. I don't know how it could work." But if Ethan figured out how to control Damage, that does take quite a bit of willpower. So he could.
That's a really good point.
So he could easily.
It's a better idea than I realized.
So he could definitely. But I mean, Earth does not need another Green Lantern right now. There's also that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But
I mean, he could be a Red Lantern.
Yeah. It was like, well, Red Lantern's kind of on the nose, but that works. But no.
The universe does not need any more Red Lanterns.
I'm not sure where I could see Damage. I think we covered the first issue of Silencer early in the show, and I think I pitched it something like after she gets away from Talia and Leviathan. I think I had her like teaming up with the Question or somebody and going around and solving mysteries effectively or something like that. But I could definitely see Silencer on maybe readjusting her character to where she's not so much an assassin, but maybe she is using her powers as a tracker. Maybe to hunt down people who are on the run, like kind of a bounty hunter instead, or even use it to maybe find, since she's a mother and has that family connection. She could use it, maybe to find runaways or children who are in danger, something like that. Use her powers for good, like that, and her skills for good. I could definitely see her there. I don't necessarily see her working on a team. Not because she's has like an off-putting nature or anything, but just I don't know. I don't think that the type of character that she is would just really gel really well with a team. Maybe just because I can't think of one. A lot of those other New Age books I didn't really read or didn't read.
Yeah, same here.
Like the Immortal Men, I didn't read that one, and I mean they did seem to be kind of their own isolated idea anyway. Maybe tweak them and have them be. The Immortal Men might be kind of cool as the quote unquote caretakers of like a new like a horror anthology series. Like they used to have, Cain and Abel were the I think it was House of Mystery that they were the quote unquote hosts. Might be kind of cool to have like a new supernatural series with characters like the Spectre and Phantom Stranger and Dead Man and guys like that. And in like wraparound segments, you could have the Immortal Men as the host for it. That might be kind of interesting. I say without knowing much about those characters.
Let me interject here as well, because I talked about Damage, but I didn't talk about Silencer. And as much as I don't want to see anything happen to Honor's husband Blake or to her son Jelly Bean. What's his actual name? Come remember. On. Yeah. As much as I don't want to see anything happen to Blake or Jelly Bean, I think it would be a very natural progression, and this kind of feeds into Jamie's idea about her hooking up with the Outsiders. Not that that's necessarily my favorite place for her, because I don't think that book is going to be really my thing, and I wanna read what's going on with her. But no, it would be a really natural progression for her to lose her husband and son, to be broken by Talia, and end up being picked up off the ground by Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that connection there that Batman has with the Al Ghuls that would make that particularly poignant. Yeah, I could see that. And I mean, I'm definitely with Jamie, and I'm sure with you, that I really don't want to see them let her fade away into obscurity. DC actually created something brand new and really excellent with the Silencer. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that go away. The only other thing I'll say about a possible future for her is that part of what's made her book really good is the brutality and the fact that she's an assassin. It's not the only appeal, but like particularly thinking of the initial few issues that John Romita Jr. penciled, that was kind of the mood of the book, and I thought it made it really good. So having her show up in some corner of the DC universe where she's secluded from people like Batman and Superman, and therefore her being an assassin can't come into conflict with their code of ethics. Mm-hmm. That could potentially be a good spot for her. Unfortunately, the only thing that comes to the top of mind is, if she's hanging out with the Red Hood, and I really don't wish that on Honor. So
Yeah. See, that's a tricky one because I want to see her continue, doing things in the DC universe. Of course, the problem is, like you said, I also don't want her to have to lose her family. So you would have to find some sort of satisfactory, middle ground where she can keep her husband and son, but also continue to use her skills, but also make it not contrived that her husband and son are still in the picture. Like, I wouldn't make
yeah.
him the man in the chair for her, at home at their base of operations or anything like that.
Jelly bean sharpening knives in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
basement.
Well, actually, you know what? I might read that. Never mind. But no, yeah, that's tough. So what do we got here? Like a silencer. See, I don't about the Outsiders. I mean, I wasn't crazy about the first issue. I did think it got
Me neither.
better in the second half. I liked Black Lightning and Katana. I wonder if Silencer might be that kind of a character like Silencer would be like that left field choice that makes the book worth reading. Just because it's not she's not necessarily an expected character to interact with that group, and I mean she's not. I don't see her as an assassin or anything like like someone like Punisher, who that's the only thing they do is kill, and that's what they're gonna do. I could easily see her, reeling herself back in, not wanting to take lives anymore, but still, work for the greater good. Still use her martial arts skills to, wreck a bunch of dudes and everything without actually killing them. So, she might work on the Outsiders. Come to think of it, but I don't know. What else was there? There's Brimstone, which I didn't really read. Um,
Me neither.
sure, he can work on Justice League Dark, I guess. Um, and there was the Unexpected, which I read like the first two issues of. Uh,
There was
oh,
Sideways, which I
Sideways.
was not super crazy about, but I mean the idea of like the rifts in space time and he's traveling. I mean, it's neat enough, but
He has a cool
I don't know
power set
how.
when it effectively turned into like a new Seven Soldiers of Victory series towards the end. That actually kind of made me curious enough to go back and read the whole series. So I might do that at some point, but uh, I mean, I guess I'll say that is, Sideways could just be the, backdoor pilot for a new Seven Soldiers book. But yeah, that's the thing is like with the Terrifics, you've still got those pre-existing characters together. New Challengers was just, new Challengers of the Unknown. Um, I'm trying to think if there's another one. I think that was it. So
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, I mean, Silencer. I think we can agree, and I liked Damage. I mean, it wasn't a great book. It wasn't like art, but it was still enjoyable. It was an enjoyable read up until the very end. So I like to.
I mean, I would say this too, right? Like if DC launched the New Age of Heroes and there was what 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah, something.
If they did that, and out of 5 or 6, we can identify 2 that are worth continuing on. That's actually that's a really good success rate.
Yeah.
And I really, really hope that they don't squander what they accomplished with those characters and that they do something with them. I get it that they can't have their own titles right now because it's not selling well enough. That makes sense. But they really need to try to find ways to develop these characters more, make them a known presence in the DC universe because there's way too much recycling of ideas and recycling of characters, and they actually hit on something that was new and worth exploring further. So, DC, do it. Make these characters work.
Yep. Definitely. So yeah, that was a good discussion. Thanks, Jamie, for having that back and forth and letting us kind of hijack that for the show here.
Do you remember when our show was this little 30 to 40 minute show and it was 30 to 40 minutes, and it was 30 to 40 minutes.
Yes, I do. And right now we're at after we excise some of the breaks we had to take, we're still at the 42-minute mark right now. So I do remember that. Yes.
But you know what that tells us is that we've got people asking us questions on a regular basis now. We've got other cool things to talk about.
Yeah,
so,
that's the thing.
That's a good
we
thing.
Have things to discuss, which I enjoy. And speaking of things to discuss, good friend of the show, Dylan Gilbertson, also asked us a question that maybe isn't as zanily inspired as the beard versus gravy vision question.
Gravy beard.
Which, fun side notes, one of my oldest friends, his name's Kyle, he actually texted me the other day and said that the correct answer is gravy vision, because he reminded me of several years ago where the two of us and a couple of other guys that he went to college with, we went and played like a church's youth event night, and we're just kind of the band just there to kind of have background music and everything. So we went and did that. I drove down to College Station because they went to A&M, and then we went to Houston to play this little event. And afterward, I think it was the guy who played guitar. His parents took us to I think it was a Logan's Roadhouse, and the guy who played guitar, Clayton, said, "Oh, they have great gravy there," which we thought was funny. Well, at one point, we all order everything, and we get our meal and everything, and everyone's sitting there talking, and there's a silence, and I had eaten something, and I said, "That is good gravy," and it was the funniest thing ever that we still bring up. So, Kyle, yes, gravy vision is the correct answer because of that. But anyway, Dylan's much more comics-focused question this week is, if you can remember, what was your first comic, and what about it made you want to keep reading comics? That is a very good, very hard question.
Yeah, well, the first part of the question is actually really easy for me. The second part's a little harder, but for me, the first comic that I can remember reading, and I believe it was the first one I read, is that a cousin of ours had just given my brothers and I a comic from his collection. I don't know if he had a duplicate or he didn't want it, but it was a Spider-Man and Wolverine. I think it was Spider-Man versus Wolverine is what it was called. They ultimately, as you would imagine, end up on the same side by the end of the book, but it was, I still remember now, what made me want to read and reread that book was, aside from the cool characters, Spider-Man and Wolverine, it just had a really strong emotional through line for Wolverine. So he was trying to track down an old flame, and I think he said her name was Charlie.
I don't think I've never read it, but I think I know the one that you're talking about. Do they have a fight in the graveyard?
They do. Okay, yeah. Yep. And so it left a big impression on me. I mean, to the point that I still remember some of those plot details. And this was, I must have been, I don't know, 10-ish, something like that. But the reason why I say the second part of Dylan's question is hard is because I wouldn't read another comic until 2013.
Right.
When a friend recommended Kingdom Come in advance of Man of Steel coming to theaters. And I read Kingdom Come, and that was sort of my first comic now in my age of actually reading comics.
And I bet you were super confused when you went and saw Man of Steel, and nothing from Kingdom Come was in that movie.
Well, the friend wasn't saying so much that that the Kingdom Come was like the movie, right. But more so that, hey, you're excited about a Superman movie. Why don't you take a look at this exemplary comic book that has Superman in it? And, I think what made me want to keep reading comics after that is what you would expect from Kingdom Come for a newbie is that the art was amazing, the story was very lofty and fairly well written by Mark Waid. I've written about this before in other places, but it was a pretty sharp drop from my expectations moving from Kingdom Come, because most comics don't even try to be as realistic looking as what Alex Ross produced in that book. Most comics aren't trying to be as lofty as what Waid was going for in that book. And I've actually found over time that isn't what I want out of comics most of the time either. So even though it was a sort of a resetting of expectations there after Kingdom Come, I was glad for it, because my I don't think the love that I have for comics now, the fun that I have for comics, would have grown the way that it has if everything was like Kingdom Come.
Right. Because not everything needs to be Kingdom Come either.
And when we talk about the book we're talking about, tonight, it's kind of a really good counter example to Kingdom Come. So
yeah, and there are books that try to be Kingdom Come and they fail because they're trying to be Kingdom Come. So, I don't know what my first comic was. The earliest comic cover that I remember ever standing out to me, and therefore I kind of point to as my first comic, and I have it right here because I actually found a copy of it at a comic shop several months ago, and I was like, I'm going to buy that for sentimental reasons. It is the Uncanny X-Men number 293. On the cover, it has Colossus about to punch a guy with a glowy energy blast hand, and in the background there are a bunch of like sludge-looking creatures coming out of a sewer drain. This is the earliest comic book cover I can ever remember really making an impact on me, and I don't remember anything from the issue itself, even flipping through it. Like now, I mean, there's Colossus and Storm, and they go down to the sewers and they encounter the Morlocks and do some stuff down there, and Archangel's in it and all this stuff. I have no idea what this issue is actually about, and what made me want to continue reading comics. The thing that probably stood out is that I loved the X-Men animated series that came out around 92. So I was probably drawn to it just because it's X-Men, and I love the X-Men show, so I'll love X-Men comics. It's the fact that it was characters that I was familiar with from watching a Saturday morning cartoon, and I could read more adventures about them. That's what kind of stuck out to me.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our listener questions. I believe that's correct, Jay, right? We just had the two?
Yep, just the two.
All right, well, we are on to our book of the week, and folks, this week I am very excited that we are talking about Detective Comics number 1003. We are smack dab in the middle, or if it's a 6-issue arc, we are, at the middle by the time we finish this one. It's the arc is all about the Arkham Knight. So if you've played the Batman Arkham Knight video game, it's a completely different Arkham Knight. There's some aesthetic similarities, but this really is a different character.
With the helmet on, there's some aesthetic similarities.
Yes, yeah. So before we go any further, big spoiler warning. We are tonight gonna spoil probably the biggest mystery in the book so far. There are other mysteries for sure, but this is the one that most people were wondering about before this issue. So please do yourself a favor. If you haven't read this, even if you think you don't want to read it, go ahead and stop listening now. If you have a podcast player that supports chapter markers, you can skip to the next chapter, other books that we like, and listen to the rest of the show, and then come back to this discussion later. You definitely should be reading Detective Comics right now. It's really, really excellent. And so go read, catch up, and then you can come listen to what we have to say about it. So you've been warned. And with that, Detective Comics 1003 is, right now, just as the other issues in this arc, written by Peter J. Tomasi. The penciler is Brad Walker. The inker for Mr. Walker is Andrew Hennessy. The colorist is Nathan Fairbairn, who's very well known for coloring Yannick Paquette, but also works with Brad Walker right now, and they're doing great work together. The letters are by Pete Tomasi's often used Rob Lee, who Jay mentioned earlier in the show. Jay, before I start going nuts on this, could you just give us a basic synopsis, catch people up to, if there's anybody who ignored the spoiler warning, catch people up to where we are in this arc so far, and then a basic overview of what happens in this issue.
So far in this story, there's a mysterious figure called the Arkham Knight who is causing some trouble for Batman. And Batman is trying to deduce the identity of this knight, who is on a definitely on some sort of crusade to save Gotham from Batman himself. In the background, there are also some mysteries that haven't really been touched upon much, including a bunch of bats around the city just simultaneously perishing and then falling to the ground. They haven't touched upon it since issue 1001, but I don't doubt that it's going to circle back and come back to that at some point. But effectively, to this point, I'm trying to remember what happened in which issues here.
Yeah, so in the first one, it was really all about the day bomb being set off in Gotham and the initial confrontation between Batman and the Knight.
Right.
And then in
1002,
yeah,
was where Batman and the Knight have a standoff in the middle of a park, and Batman notices that. And we as the readers notice as well that the Knight does care for collateral damage and is quick to make sure that there is not any unnecessary loss of life. She protects a police officer who's about to get shot, doesn't want to do anything rash in front of... I just spoiled it right there. Whoops.
Well, they were warned.
Yes. Protects a police officer and is also very conscious of innocent bystanders who are around and filming the confrontation between themselves and Batman, which that makes you think that maybe this person is a little more heroic than you would think that they would be. And then Batman gets injured in this battle and goes back to the Batcave, which leads Robin to go on the chase to infiltrate Arkham Asylum, or I don't know if I don't remember if he's necessarily led there.
He gets shocked and he gets taken there by the Knight.
He tracks down something with the Knight that is escaping my memory. It's not like I review this book or anything, guys. Come on.
He's looking for fragments of the day bomb in Aparo Bay.
Right. That's right. Man, I'm really bad about this. And I do review this book, guys. In my defense, though, I just totally forgot. Damian gets shocked by the Knights after he is come upon by some of their goons who he handles, fairly swiftly.
The Knights of the Sun,
yes,
as the Arkham Knight calls her minions.
And Damian winds up in Arkham Asylum and is effectively given a pitch by the Knight to join her ranks and
to pledge his fealty.
Pledge fealty to. I'm just really tired now, guys. I'm so sorry. It's Thursday and I am sleepy. So Damian ultimately escapes from the cell that he's been locked up in. Because he does not accept the Knight's offer, and then tries to escape Arkham Asylum, and then winds up in front of the Knight, and then several villains like Dr. Phosphorus and Clayface, and I think Tweedle, one of the Tweedles is there. Calendar Man, Mr. Freeze, who calls him I think it was a Turdus Migratorius.
Correct.
And I thought that was just like a fun joke, because it's like, oh yeah, Damien totally is a Turdus Migratorius. But then I found out that is the scientific name for the Robin. But it's fitting, because Damien is totally a Turdus. And then the Knight takes off their helmets at the end of issue 1002 to reveal their identity to Damien, and that is where we find ourselves at the beginning of issue 1003.
Yeah, so 1003 basically brings about a resolution to the confrontation between Damien and the Knight's people, and it shows us that the Knight is a pretty lady.
Yes.
It is not a dude, as we all would have assumed, and I don't think it would have been a poor assumption if you assumed that it was a dude, because for starters, the Knights of the Sun, the Arkham Knights fellow knights, they are all obviously male or female. You can tell. You can tell the shape of the breastplates on the ladies clearly, have breasts in them, and then the men's breastplates are clearly don't. And so there's an obvious So there's there's an obvious difference there. So with the Arkham Knight looking very large and imposing and not obviously feminine, it's natural to assume that the Arkham Knight is a dude, but you'd be wrong. And I will say the only slight nitpick I have, the only slight complaint I have, is that there was so much good evidence seeded by Tomasi in Detective Comics 1000 and then in 1001 and 1002, a lot of clues for the reader to follow to try to make some deduction about the Arkham Knight's identity. The thing that Batman mentions in this issue about how he knew that the Knight was a lady is something that we could not have known as a reader. And
what did he say? He looked at social media feeds and watched.
He analyzed her movement.
Yeah,
yep.
Which I don't know. I thought was a little maybe flimsy. But I also want to mention that when I was at Fan Expo Dallas this past weekend, I think I mentioned it on a previous show without spoiling anything. I talked to Tomasi about it, and I did say that I love how he's been characterizing the Arkham Knight, because she's, a nut job. She's a wackadoodle, and it's delightful to read because she's not like angry and bitter or anything like that. There may be some anger behind why she has decided to do what she's doing. But she definitely has more of the bearings of a cult leader with delusions of grandeur, which is much more interesting than just someone out to seek vengeance, on Batman because they don't like Batman.
Yeah, it is interesting too. You mentioned earlier from the previous issue, you can see the Knight's demonstration that she cares about innocent life. She protects the police. Worth noting too that she protects the police officer by taking the bullet in her own armor. And even though she knows that she's got good armor, that's still a statement. She takes the bullet on her armor. Even here in this issue, she is very forgiving of Damien's impudence. And actually a lot more forgiving of Damien than she is of her own people. Two of her goons say that they've basically suffered at the hands of Robin before, and they don't want the Knight to treat him well, and so they go to attack him, and the Knight severs one of their hands and cuts the bowstring on the bow of the other one, and then later really flips out at them. And then kills the two that kind of stepped out of line. So I wouldn't say it necessarily seems like unhinged anger, but there's definitely a rage there. There's definitely a desire to control in the same way that she accuses Batman of trying to control things.
Yeah, and again, one of the things that Tomasi mentioned was the mystery is there about who the knight is, because like the point isn't going to be the knight's actual identity, because like there is that mystery that we've been building up to purposefully, but the reveal of her identity isn't going to be this shocker of, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's them. That's not the point. The point is why she is doing what she's doing. That is
Right.
and
Yeah.
which again is much more interesting than just, oh, that's Dick Grayson under the helmet because they couldn't think of anything better to do with Dick Grayson right now. Well, that kind of sucks, but okay. He definitely, even though even in this issue we still don't know exactly why she is on this mission. I keep using the word crusade because that's really what it is and what it feels like, and it goes along
Right.
with the medieval name of the arc and the the knight aesthetic that she has. She's on this crusade. We don't know her exact motivation.
She even calls it a crusade in 1001
right,
too.
right.
Yeah.
And so we don't know why she's on the crusade. Just that she, has this single-minded focus on it. But like you said, she's forgiving of Robin because I believe I don't remember the exact line, but she even says, eventually, he'll come to see the light. He'll come around in the end, and that's why she lets him go.
Yeah, and I mean, to what Tomasi said about her identity not being the point, I wrote an article about this issue today, and when I shared it to social media, I said, we got the question, who is the Arkham Knight, answered in this issue, but then Tomasi left us with a brand new question: who is the Arkham Knight? I mean, we know, and hopefully if you guys are listening, you've read this, and if you haven't, you don't care, but, the Arkham Knight is Astrid Arkham, a brand new character, the daughter of Jeremiah Arkham, the warden of Arkham Asylum, and, it was a little bit gratifying for me to find this out, because I had said that the Arkham Knight was probably an Arkham on the podcast. I've been gathering the evidence on an article up on comicsnow.com, trying to figure out who the Arkham Knight is. And, a lot of the seeds that Tomasi planted suggested somebody with some exposure to psychological, learning or education, somebody who was well educated. And it's kind of gratifying to see that actually prove true. It's not so much a testament to me, though. It's a testament to Tomasi actually laying clues that make sense, so that when the identity is revealed, it actually resonates with the clues that he's laid down.
Yeah, because he's playing fair with his mystery. He's not just pulling the rug out from under us or pulling the wool over our eyes to make it seem like there's more there than there actually is. He's laying the groundwork for this mystery that he wants us to solve along with the characters, and it's maybe an unexpected reveal in some ways. I mean, because this is a brand new character, so you wouldn't have said, "I think it's an Arkham," but not an Arkham we've ever seen before. A teenage Arkham who is pushing 20, and her name's Astrid. I mean, it's not like that, but it's definitely to doing the detective work along with Detective Comics, like you've been doing. The pieces are there, so when it's finally revealed, you can have that aha moment, and you don't feel cheated in that it's somebody that just doesn't work with the story that's being told, but you're also not let down or disappointed because you were able to guess. You had the gratification
Right.
of solving the mystery with the mystery unfolding.
Yeah, and so by the end of this thing, we don't know, like you said, we don't know exactly why she's doing this. There are clues to that. She clearly has issue with Batman using violence against the criminally deranged. And she also sees somebody like Damian as in the darkness of the bat. And so those are some clues. I like to think that, maybe she heard her father talking poorly of Batman. You know, we've seen, if I recall correctly, we've seen in some comics, Jeremiah objecting to Batman being in the asylum. I think even during King's Run, there was a moment where Jeremiah said that Batman had no right to be there, and Batman kind of just flexed at him and said that he did, or that he wasn't going to stop him or something like that. But then also there's indication in Detective Comics 1000 that Astrid has seen Batman work up close. And so, if she's been hearing these things about Batman from her father, and then she sees Batman up close, when Batman is handling one of his enemies, that enemy is going to look like a victim if you remove the context of why Batman is doing that, because Batman outmatches almost every one of his foes. It's interesting that the one foe that Astrid makes an allowance for in Detective Comics 1000, do you remember? It's Bane.
That's right. Huh.
Yeah, it's the foe that Batman can't make look like a victim because he's a physical match for Batman. Right. And so it's I mean, it's just, this has been a lot of fun for me to just sort of look at all these clues and think about these things, but it will be I'm hoping that the next issue, it seems like it will be, Jeremiah sort of spilling his guts about his daughter, and we'll get some of the backstory, but why don't we talk a little bit about the artwork? Because honestly, I'll go out with it. Brad Walker's work on this title is my favorite artwork in Detective Comics, maybe in Detective Comics and Batman, since I started reading ongoing comics in 2013.
Wow.
I absolutely love what he is doing on this book. To me, the sort of the distortion of his figures, their anatomy, the exaggerations, the way that he just sort of caricatures certain aspects of characters' bodies to give a dramatic emphasis in a particular scene, just very sharp and dynamic poses that he puts characters in, his storytelling. I am just in love with what he's doing. The only thing I would say that I wouldn't mind if it was different is the reflective eyes, but even those I've gotten used to.
Those don't bother me. I mean, I understand why they bother some people, but they don't bother me that much. So yeah.
Yeah, so I am absolutely over the moon. I know there are some inconsistencies, particularly in 1001 with the cowl rendering and occasionally some faces, but I don't know. What do you think about the work that Walker and Hennessy and Fairbairn have been turning in?
I mean, not necessarily cheekily, but I mean, you could see it almost as like a joke comment. But I effectively called this arc Batman and Robin 2.0, which I think is a very fair assessment of it, because it definitely feels like in the writing, especially between Bruce and Damian, a continuation of the storytelling and the chemistry that was in Tomasi and Gleason's Batman and Robin series. But a lot of that isn't so much because I don't mean it in a sense that it's derivative of that series. I mean it in that Batman and Robin is what you want and should want. Well, I won't say it's what people should want, but I mean it's what it has everything that you could want. Let's say out of a Batman series.
No, it's what you should want.
Yeah, it is.
Just go all in.
But I mean, it's everything you could want in a Batman series. You've got strong character work. You've got excellent writing. You have great chemistry between characters. You have multiple members of the Bat family being utilized and utilized well. And there is the moment like where Bruce and Damian put on their Under Armour and then put their costumes on over it. That looks like it was, could have been lifted from that series. And
I love it.
Walker's style isn't isn't too similar to Gleason's, to the point that, again, it feels like, he's a copycat, or, derivative, or, a lesser artist, because he's a strong artist on his own. He has his own aesthetic and style that works, and it works incredibly well. But if you stick this along with those stories, it feels like that series never ended. And considering a lot of what went on with especially Detective Comics when Batman and Robin was going on, I would not blame you, because I'm in the same boat, for wishing that the Batman and Robin series then was the actual Detective Comics series from the New
Yes.
52. So having that, same energy and same storytelling quality continue on now with Tomasi's run, and even though Gleason isn't working here, he has an equally skilled artist and an equally skilled storyteller in Walker to tell this just amazing example of what a Batman story can and should be. I absolutely adore this team together.
You know what my favorite page is, I think, and there's a lot of really good ones in this particular issue, but it's the page right before we see the Robin signal in the sky, where at the bottom you got Batman smiling. It is outstanding. Like if if I could somehow scrape together the money and Walker puts this on sale, the inked page, I would buy this page. I absolutely love
Yeah,
it.
because I mean, the problem I have with people having a problem with Batman showing emotion is that, I mean, it's also tied to when people think that he's a loner and should never work with people. It's like he's worked with people from the very beginning. I mean,
Right.
the case of the Chemical Syndicate, he works right alongside Commissioner Gordon to,
Right.
figure out where these people. So he's had allies from the beginning. Um, Even extending to Justice League. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying it should be, Super Friends level of, Batman, slapping Superman on the back, and then, them, laughing about things. But, having him be like this jerk loner that nobody likes, but also he has this extended family of allies and, either blood or adopted family members, at the same time. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to actually call him a loner who, doesn't work with people. It's the same thing. Here it's, Batman showing emotion, but it's not corny or campy. It's that he, is proud that his son and this, uh, this partner that he has in his war on crime is capable and was able to, work something out on his own, so that they can come together and then, be a stronger force as a team rather than they would be individually.
Absolutely. And Walker captures the pride in that smile perfectly. Um, what do you think your favorite page is? If I was going to guess, I would say your favorite page is probably, them leaping down from the
I
building.
loved that. I mean, just the composition of the page with the Robin signal in the sky, absolutely gorgeous. That
Oh
splash
yeah.
with the big R, and then Batman at the bottom of the page looking up at it. You don't see his face, but I just love how part of his cape is billowing in the the upper right quadrant of the image there. I mean, it's just a gorgeously composed image, but to come back to my, comparing this to the Batman and Robin series, like the putting on of the, extra armor scene, that when they're leaping from the building, like you just mentioned, digitally, it's page 11. That totally looks like something that Gleason would have drawn in Batman and Robin. So yeah, I love that page too.
Yeah. Um, did you let out a giggle when Damien said
Atomic batteries to
atomic
power.
batteries to
Yes,
power?
I did. And then there's just this
Oh yeah.
ridiculous. I don't even think they give it a name, but just that ridiculous, like bat tank capsule thing.
Gyrosphere.
I don't know, But I love that. Just that it's like, hey, let's try this new ride. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, did they? I think I'm getting. I was gonna say, did they use it in Batman and Robin? But no, Damian was on top of the those criminals. They were in a similar vehicle, weren't they? Remember the ones that he killed early on in Batman and Robin? Those crooks that he fried in their own vehicle.
I
You remember what I'm talking about?
vaguely. I'd have to go back and thumb through.
Yeah, it was in the first arc where those crooks were trying to steal some plutonium or some other radioactive substance, and
Yeah.
Batman ended up putting him in a pool.
Yeah, I mean,
and-
I remember the story. I don't remember what the vehicle
Sure.
looked like, though.
Sure. Yeah, it was something spherical, but anyway. Yeah, so I mean, I absolutely love the artwork. I love the font that Rob Lee went with for the dialogue here. I think is a particularly well suited to Walker's aesthetic.
Yep, totally agree. I didn't know if you were gonna continue on there.
Sorry, I was flipping pages.
It's okay.
Love the sound effects.
Oh, of course. I love that big. Where is it? Toward the end, when their capsule tank thing, busts down the sewer grate, and it's a big.
I'm looking at it now.
Boom with the
Yes.
O's just like wide open. I love that.
Yeah.
I love Dr. Phosphorus because you know how much I love Strange Apparitions, and he was a big part of that book, or at least in one of those issues. So, he's just a fun character to see, and I love his like really, the scraggly word balloons with the green font. That's just really fun for that character.
It is interesting how subservient Dr. Phosphorus is to Astrid, that she seems to command not just the respect of these nobody criminals that are following her, but also somebody in Arkham.
Yeah, well, I mean, even like Freeze is a lot more compliant with what she's wanting, which is like that's nobody who I would ever say is somebody who would necessarily work for someone else. So I wonder if she has some way that she's manipulated them or controlled them that they're willing to go along with her actions.
Yeah, you have to wonder, because you could see some of the lesser criminals in Gotham being attracted to her sympathy for them, her view that they are victims of Batman.
Right.
But somebody like Freeze has, at least it seems like, has way too much self-respect to be taken in by that kind of an angle.
Right, and I mean even with Freeze, I mean he's just slightly removed from just being a tragic hero. It's just mean he goes about his his mission in a way that is decidedly not heroic, and has had actions in the past and has done things that are decidedly villainous. But he's not a frothing at the mouth lunatic like somebody like who else do we have in here? I mean, like
Mad Hatter,
Zaz, or Hatter, or anybody like that. So it is interesting, and I'm curious to see why he's on her side.
Yeah, well, I think it's incredibly safe to say that after reading Detective Comics 1003, I still love me some comics, Jay.
I still love comics too, and I mean, I even said that this run of Detective Comics, beginning with the what was it, 994 when Tomasi came on.
I believe so.
Tomasi and Monkey, and then now Tomasi and Walker. This is the best that Detective Comics has been in years and years and years, and I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, easily since before the New 52. Your mileage may vary with Snyder's Black Mirror, but there's been nothing since the New 52 started that's even come close to this.
I like the Black Mirror. That's one of my favorite Snyder Batman stories. So I mean, yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it too.
Yeah,
I love it too. Yeah.
It's definitely since before the New 52 launched. And
well, and surprise, it's got Dick Grayson in the Kel. You're pretty much destined to love such a thing, even as long as it's even halfway faithful to Dick's character.
Definitely. So yeah, what other books have you been liking since Monday?
So I had trouble thinking. I didn't read a whole lot of other things this week because I was trying to kind of be immersed in Detective Comics because I knew we were going to be talking about it. But I did today order Daredevil Yellow. I've never read it, and I found a good price for a used hardcover on Amazon. Shipped, I think it's 9 and change that I paid for it.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm really anxious to read that when it gets here. I don't know if I mentioned it. I mentioned these books, but I did really enjoy the Free Comic Book Day Spider-Man and Free Comic Book Day
Yeah,
Avengers.
I haven't I haven't gotten the Avengers one, but I finally read the Spider-Man one. Yeah, that one was a lot of fun.
Yeah. The I enjoyed the Absolute Carnage stuff, but I also enjoyed the Peter and Miles and pizza
Yeah, Shocker
stuff.
telling them that what Shocker said it was Brooklyn had the best pizza, right? Or did he say it was Queens?
No. Shocker said
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Miles said the Bronx,
Yeah, and
right?
I think Peter said Queens. So yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, and that was a nice sentimental, issue. It's like, Shocker's right. The best pizza is the one that you have the most attachment to. So it was just a sweet issue.
Well, and then Shocker says, "Die,
Yeah, yes,
Spider-Mans."
yes. And I love Shocker. I love his costume. I mean, that's always been one
Oh
of my
yeah,
favorite villain costumes ever. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Speaking of Spider-Man, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #6 from Tom Taylor and Juan Cabal. You will cry if you.
I need to get caught up.
Oh my god! I mean, it's a standalone issue. I think maybe the ending of issue 5 leads into it, just where to give context of where Spider-Man is geographically in this, but you could easily read this as a standalone issue. I won't spoil it then if you haven't caught up on it, but think oh gosh, what was the Superman issue? I think it was like Tomasi and Gleason's Superman. I think it was like number 32 or something. The one where they take the children from the cancer ward and take them up to the Justice League watchtower on the moon, or the watchtower um, satellite. And do you remember that one? Okay.
Vaguely.
I mean, it was also kind of like a really sweet, kind of a tearjerker of a story. This is in a similar vein to that. And it was kind of a gut punch too, because I honestly didn't see the twist coming at the end. But yeah, it landed like it kind of comparable to Tomasi playing fair with the mystery he's been doing in Detective Comics. Um, the end reveal for this story was definitely it was definitely very sentimental, but it made sense in the story that Taylor was telling. But that was a really, really good issue. I also read the graphic novel 6 Days. It's published by, I think it was Vertigo that officially published it. Um, don't think it comes out for. It actually says it came out yesterday. So I think it maybe hits mass market stores on the 14th. That came out yesterday in comic shops. Um, it is written by Kevin Morer and Robert Venditti and illustrated by Andrea Muti. It's about a battalion of a it says the U.S. 82nd Airborne Division in World War II accidentally parachute into a drop zone that's about 15 miles away from their destination. They're accidentally released too early, so they wind up in this small French village and spend the better part of a week there. They spend about 6 days there before they're discovered by a regiment of German troops, and it's very. I mean, it's a very quick read. It's in a good way. I mean, the pacing is really good, which is funny because um, the thing that's one of the lines that stuck out to me the most was one of the U.S. troopers said to the other one was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's effectively in war, it's not the fighting that's hell, it's the waiting. So
Mm.
so they're just waiting around, either hoping to get rescued or just waiting until enemy troops find them and they have to take action. And one of the troops falls in love with one of the villagers, and I mean it's a very good story. It's funny because there are a lot of characters named, but you don't really find out much about anybody. But you still come to know and like everybody in the story, even if you couldn't name them beside anybody else. It was a really good example of just some great, just deliberate, very slow paced, but still quick read storytelling, if that makes any sense whatsoever. There's not a lot of action until the very, very end of the book, but even then, it's just engrossing from the very beginning, and just some absolutely gorgeous artwork from Andrea Muti. Um, so that's also one that I definitely recommend picking up if you're a fan of war stories. Venditti, I like pretty much anything I read from him. Just a good comic all around.
Fantastic. Well, Jay, where can folks find us until the next episode of the podcast? Which, sorry guys, it won't be 3 days from now. We can't always do them this close together, but we're glad we were able to make up some of the lost time that we had over the previous few weeks.
We may have a special little bonus episode in the next couple of days with me and my friends giving our endgame reactions, because we recorded that and forgot to put it in the last episode. But hey, we may have that out in another couple of days here. But full-fledged episode it'll definitely be another week. But hey, if you haven't, you can go back and catch up with us. And to do so, you can visit our website, which is www.comics-now.com, where we host the podcast, write almost daily news releases and press releases and comic reviews, and just posting YouTube clips with reviews. Brian, right before we recorded, posted a Dark Knight Rises Bane figure from, was it a Diamond Select that you got that?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we got all that up there on comics-now.com. You can find us all across all sorts of social media, such as Twitter and Instagram. Just search for @ComicsNowCast. Like we said earlier, we are on Patreon, so if you want to join Nick as one of our patrons here on Comics Now, go to patreon.com/comicsnow. Look at all the perks that we offer, and just join along in the discussion and the love of comics that we have. Search for us on Facebook. Search for Comics Now. Like us and share us there. Give us a nice recommendation, is what they call it there. 5-star rating and a recommendation, if you would. Search for us on YouTube. Just search for Comics Now, and we're the guys that aren't the Belgian guy who also does lots of comics review stuff. You can email us at comicsnowcast@gmail.com. You can follow me personally on Twitter at JAYAWS. Rate and review us on iTunes. Give us a nice 5-star rating and leave us a good review. Definitely appreciate those. Helps us with whatever the Apple podcast analytics are. Makes us easier to find and much more accessible, and it just makes our day better when you guys leave your feedback for us, especially when it's positive. So rate and review us there. Give us a thumbs up on Stitcher. Share us on any other podcasting platform of your choice, including Spotify. And we are also going to start eventually posting more of the episodes on YouTube as well, if that's how you prefer to listen to your podcast. As always, I am Jay, joined by Brian, and this is Comics Now.